Huge clusters of workers have become sick with COVID-19 at meat processing plants in the United States because some of the largest corporate food processors failed to implement any kind of safety precautions for workers. Joining me to talk about this is Farron Cousins, editor of the Trial Lawyer magazine. As I look at this story, worse yet, as I look at the graphics here, I don't want to eat meat. But, this story really, I think we're going to survive even without meat for a while. People have alternative protein. But the thing that bothers me about this is it just got so little attention. These workers were going in without any protection. They're working 4 feet apart, basically, no protection at all. The sound is so loud in there that to talk, they have to get face to face, ear to ear, whatever. It just screamed out for problems, especially when people started leaving and not coming back because they couldn't come back. They were sick.
Right. And one of the things we're finding out now, too, is that the management at many of these plants, Tyson Foods, JBS Foods, and Smithfield, actually encouraged workers, even if you're sick, you still have to come in. We're a vital part of the economy, a vital part of the food chain, they said. So even if you're sick, if you're showing symptoms, we still want you to come in. One employee described it as, unless you were in a casket, they expected you to show up to work the next day.
Yeah, it was they call it their work while sick policy.
Right.
They actually had a policy, the work while sick policy. I can't avoid the irony here. This is crazy. Smithfield, as you know, the biggest meat packer maybe in the world, is owned by the Chinese, doing business right here in the United States. So Smithfield probably had some of the worst policies across the board. And Smithfield, of all of them, had every reason to know very early something was getting ready to happen, but they provided no masks, they provided no gloves, they provided no separation, because I guess they look at these people as being expendable. Thousands of these people working in the same plant.
Right, and they do view them as expendable. I mean, we have seen this, for all kinds of different corporations. The workers come and go. If somebody drops dead on the assembly line, you simply replace that person. It goes back to the old asbestos memo. If you've had a great life working in asbestos, why not die from it?
Yeah.
And that corporate mentality has not changed in over 100 years at this point.
Right.
So what we've had with these workers, in addition to being told come in sick, we had the businesses themselves, Smithfield, JBS, Tyson, told the federal government, told OSHA, okay, we're going to implement these new standards. And the new standards are you have to wear a mask, you have to do the social distancing. And then according to the workers, it took weeks after they promised OSHA everything was going to be okay before the masks showed up. It took weeks before they were actually told to distance themselves from one another at least 6 feet. So the corporation tries to tell the government, listen, we're doing everything right. We've made these new policies. But the workers are saying they may have told you they made these policies, but they never implemented them until, of course, it was too late. They didn't get their masks at many of these plants until about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, so right now, more than 3,000 of them are sick. The workers are sick. More than 20 are dead. And so the point is this, it's workers' compensation. You see, that's different from being able to sue the corporation. That worker, their only relief generally is going to be through workers' compensation. So a corporation can make an assessment. How much does this worker compensation, how much is going to cost us if we lose Joe over here because he's got coronavirus? They do the math. And when they do the math, they say, well, we're going to do a lot better, just business as usual. Joe's not going to be that expensive because it's workers' compensation. No big deal.
Well, you've got the Trump administration right now, and Mitch McConnell, as of yesterday morning, announced he was going to be working on this as well, trying to come up with some kind of immunity for corporations so that when they have outbreaks like this, you can't sue them at all. And what that's going to lead to is that's going to lead to even fewer safety precautions. They're going to think, well, we don't have to protect our workers because we're immune now. It's going to be this horrid, slippery slope of mass infection.
Businesses that are suffering from the statewide stay-at-home orders are quickly learning that their insurance policies aren't covering the economic slowdown, even though they were supposed to. Joining me to talk about this is Scott Hardy, the president of Top Class Actions. Scott, you have your pulse on exactly what's going on around the country. The first time we started getting calls at our law firm where you'd have a business, an entire chain business, large chains calling us and saying, we have this business policy, and they're telling us there's no coverage. And then we look at the policy, and there's clearly coverage, Tell us what business interruption insurance is and what's happening with this right now during the shutdown.
Sure. So business continuity insurance, business interruption insurance, is to cover these businesses if they're shut down due to a natural disaster like a hurricane, a fire, or a pandemic. And so when these businesses are shut down, this insurance is supposed to cover their payroll. It's supposed to actually cover their income, even pay for their loans, pay for their rent. So from the time that they're shut down to the time that they open back up, they have money to, cover their business and pay everybody. So that way, they don't go bankrupt.
Yeah, okay, so here's what we're seeing already, and tell me if this is consistent with what you're seeing out there. We'll look at a policy, and the policy will say, it'll be all coverage policy. There'll be no question. They're not even making exceptions. They're saying this is an all risk policy. But then they're telling the folks that make the demand, who've been paying outrageous amounts for the insurance companies for decades. They're telling them, oh, no, we didn't mean that. It's not what it means. You're going to have to fight it out. We see that. And then we see policies where they say that, well, there is a clause here that says that we're going to exclude loss for bacteria. We see that a lot. But they don't put in there bacteria and virus. A virus is a pathogen. It's very different. The pathogen you should have coverage for. And so they have these talking points that they're telling everybody to discourage them from making these types of claims. Are you seeing that same thing?
Yes, we are. Just like you, we've received thousands of submissions from business owners around the country that are suffering the exact same problem, where they've been paying for this insurance. A friend of mine called me on the day he was shut down and said, Scott, hey, I've been paying for this insurance for years. I finally say, great, it's finally, I'm going to use it. He calls his insurance agent, says, hey, buddy, we've been friends for years, been paying you. I need this to pay out. And his insurance agent said, oh, sorry, yeah, submit your claim, but we're just denying everything. And so, as you said, when you look at these insurance.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So when you look at these insurance policies, just like you said, it's very cut and dry from, if my business is shut down due to something beyond my control, like a natural disaster, I should be covered for my expenses, be able to pay my payroll, and still have that income come in. So once things are not shut down, things open back up, I can get paid. But insurance companies, after the SARS outbreak and H1N1, tried to add some clauses in there so they wouldn't have to pay, which is what you were talking about there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what we're saying is always make the assumption even if look, you've got a different issue here. If you're watching this program and you have coverage that they're denying, understand there's a couple of issues that you need to be aware of. One of them is that the civil authority issue, where the government has said you must shut down because of a public health crisis. That should be something that you consider when you make your claim. That should work to your advantage. The second thing is as this litigation develops, you're going to find that there's going to be interpretations of these policies that are going to be widely varied. You're going to have some courts that are going to always rule for the insurance companies, some that are going to say, look, if I look at this, we just have to find, if we weigh everything, we certainly should weigh in favor of the businesses who've been paying all this money for coverage. What are you telling, what are the attorneys that you're working with, what are they telling people right now, Scott, about how to proceed?
They're saying submit those claims, get those denial letters, send those denial letters, send your claim policies into the attorneys. They need to review those because just like you said, there's going to be a lot of different ways that they're attacking this. The insurance companies are sitting there and saying, hey, we can't afford to pay out all these claims. But in 2018, they took in $1.2 trillion in payments. And after paying all their operating expenses, paying on all the claims, these insurance companies still cleared a $60 billion profit in 2018. So how can they not have money to pay these small business owners that are trying to get $50,000, $25,000 just to stay open.
Yeah, we have to go, but I'll tell you this, we saw the same thing with hurricane loss. We saw the same thing with the BP loss here on the Gulf Coast. It's the same game they play all the time. Don't give up. If you have a policy, do not give up. Hire an attorney who knows what they're talking about, who will jump in and fight for you. Thanks for joining me, Scott, okay?
Thank you for your time, Pat. I appreciate it.
Finally tonight, some good news. A federal court last week ruled that the Environmental Protection Agency can't continue to ignore toxins being released from paper and pulp mills when they set emission rules. The EPA is required to review emissions from corporations every 8 years and then to use those set limits on what's acceptable and what's not. But ever since that rule was established in 2001, the EPA has never factored in emissions from these pulp mills. These pulp mills are dangerous. They put out dangerous amounts of toxic chemicals like dioxin and mercury right into the nearby environment. And for nearly 20 years, the federal government's been pretending that these emissions don't exist at all. But thanks to last week's ruling, these dangerous toxins must be counted. Long-term exposure to mercury has been linked to abnormal brain functions and structural changes to the brain that can lead to permanent disastrous alterations in personality. Exposure to dioxin, even in low amounts, can severely disrupt the endocrine system, alter hormones, and destroy a person's reproductive system. And these are just a few of the many adverse effects that these chemicals have on the body. Last week's ruling might be a couple of decades too late, but it could prevent severe health problems in the future. Maybe that's good news. Maybe that's the best we can expect these days. That's all for tonight. Find us on Twitter and at Facebook at facebook.com/RT America's Lawyer. You can watch all RT America programs on DirecTV channel 321 and also stream them live on YouTube. Be sure to check out RT's new portable app where you can watch all your shows, anything you want to watch on that app. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer, where every week we give you the stories that corporate media is ordered not to tell because of their political connections, like you heard tonight, and because their advertisers won't let them. Have a great night.